OTR FM, part of the IOM radio network.
IPMNation.com.
Tonight on Unleashed, I'm joined via Skype by Brian Brody, host of The Brian Brody Show, which is just about to launch this coming Friday, as a matter of fact. We are live from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire, broadcasting worldwide on IPM Nation 2 and OTR FM. It's Tuesday, March 29th, 2016, 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on this glorious Tuesday evening on IPM Nation 2. And, of course, it is a Tuesday night, so we also have the honor and privilege of being carried on OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes radio network. And we have with us, joining us tonight, we're going to get right to our guest because time is short. He's only going to be able to stick around for the first segment because he's got an early morning. Actually, he's got a lot of early mornings coming up. Joining us via Skype, Brian Brody, host of The Brian Brody Show. Brian, how are you?
Good, Matt. How are you, brother?
Very good, very good. Welcome to the show. And, of course, your show debuts. And, by the way, it's not an April Fool's prank, everybody. It really is debuting April 1st, The Brian Brody Show. 7 a.m. Eastern Time, so that'll be 6 a.m. where you are. Geez, really early, on IPM Nation 1, and that starts this Friday, and we're very excited about that. So,
well, Matt, thank you so much. I have to tell you, when I first put it out to the team that we were going to be doing this, they were like, yeah, April Fools, we get it. But why would you tell us the joke like 30 days early, right? Why not wait till April 1st to kind of lay us on it? So, yeah, I get the same kind of pushback here as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's I think it's funny because when you and I had originally said, let's launch the show the 1st of April, it didn't even occur to me, April 1st. It didn't occur to me until later. But what is the Brian Brody Show for the uninitiated?
Well, Matt, I've been thinking a lot about it. I love your concept of Unleashed. And for the people that are going to be tuning in the show, it's kind of like we're still working it out, right? Classic Brian, to wait till the very last minute to even figure out what we're going to call the Brian Brody Show. But it's going to have a pretty strong bent on a concept that I believe in called all-natural being. Mm-hmm. And what that means, Matt, is that we're born, we have a certain set of mental skills that are inculcated at a very early stage. And then as you grow and hopefully mature in life, you collect a lot of baggage. I call it the mind's entourage. So you reach a certain stage in your life, and then you have to start wondering, wait a minute, are these thoughts mine? Are they someone else's? I love these people going, well, I only tell the truth. Which makes me look at them usually, Matt, and go, well, that's cool, but how did you figure out the truth to be telling everybody? Right? So for me, I wanted to do All Natural Being to remind people that you can get back to that. And as you, Matt, know, and Jen and I have to just give a shout out to Jen because she's been fantastic to me personally, was instrumental in getting me hooked up with you and starting our conversation. So I want to say hello to Jen. But for me, All Natural Being is not motivation. For heaven's sakes, it's nothing like self-help industry tactics. And for your guests, I'll let them, or for your listeners, I'll let them figure out self-help industry tactics. Let them figure out the acronym. Right? So it's none of that, because if you need an outside carrot at the end of the stick, if you need, some mototainment expert jumping around on stage, clapping his hands, all the bells and whistles and and
Firewalk.
noises of a Vegas slot machine, you don't got yourself something you can use. And that's what All Natural Being's all about.
Yeah. It's I think it's perfect the time of day for a show like that, because it's just a good way for people to start their day, and hearing what you're going to be discussing. And you have an interesting history, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but tell us a little bit about your background. I know you're a former cop, and you've done a lot of interesting things.
Well, Matt, I was going over the bio that they sent you a couple weeks back, and it dawned on me what it clearly states to anyone at a second grade reading level is I have an inability to keep a job, apparently. Right? I mean, yes, I started out, well, long before I was in the military, or after I was in the military. I started out as a police officer and was called one day to the scene of a suicide, and it turned out to be my dad's.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, Matt, we're coming up on like 30 years. What's the 30th anniversary of my dad's decision to take his own life? And that was the real beginning of my quest, Matt. So when I talk about All Natural Being, I just didn't come up with the idea because I found it in a fortune cookie, or, I saw someone on Facebook claiming to be a modern day saint, whatever, however all that happened.
Right.
It's come to me over 30 years of investigating what would compel a human mind to actually open the window of a 13-story building, look out, and then go, I think this is the best course of action for me.
Right.
Not only what would happen to the mind, Matt, but what happens to the voice, that one voice of dissent, when every other voice in your head is calling for you to take your own life. So, right, all that I know, who was it that said, if you're a hammer, you look at everything like a nail?
Yes.
Well, what did I know, Matt? I was a cop, right? So I set out on what has now been a 30-year investigation, doing what I knew how to do, which was tracking down clues, looking for leads, interviewing suspects, right? Throwing opinions up in front of a grand jury and seeing if I could get an indictment. So for 3 decades now, I've been trying to figure out, by studying the fields of comparative religion and philosophy, psychology, the classics, blah, 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 right? Quantum physics, this whole thing, all in an attempt to figure out what would compel a human mind to turn against itself. And thankfully, Matt, for me, as you know from our earlier conversation, thankfully it led me to what it would take for a human mind to become its own biggest fan, its own best friend. And that was the impetus behind All Natural Being.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done too. I was checking out some of your YouTube videos, and we won't, I know we don't have a ton of time, so we don't need to get into all of it, but people can go online and check it out. You've got a great website, brianbrody.com, which I really like.
Thank you, brother.
And you have some history in broadcasting too. I was checking out a previous podcast that you had done, and you are also, you do a lot of television appearances in the morning. Tomorrow morning, you're going to be on Fox News, correct?
I am. It's funny, Matt, and why I'm so excited about Friday morning is that I've said for all these years, if anyone's ever seen a picture of me, I have a face for radio. It still stuns me, brother, that people ask me to be on TV, and I've been very fortunate throughout the course of my career to do, golly, like Good Morning America, the early show, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and local affiliates. I think I've done TV as far away as Beijing and China.
Nope.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky. The first producer that I ever worked with said, Bri, where'd you go to school for journalism? I go, I didn't. How long have you been in television? And that was my first ever interview. And I said, like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he said, never forget, you're like a little kid at Christmas opening gifts. So That's my sole education, Matthew, in journalism, so to speak, right, is when I go on camera, I only go if it's something that I'm passionate about, right? So I'm really fortunate to have the pick of clients, to be able to choose the reasons that I go on camera, but I'm like, right, that little kid that's easily distracted with bells and whistles and shiny objects, and that's what I do on camera, and I get paid for it.
Yeah.
It's the wildest gig. So yeah, Unfortunately, I'm the one that has to bail a little early on you tonight because I've got a call time. But yeah, I hopefully make some people smile with the things that we talk about, and I hope that I'm going to be able to bring a lot of that. My team's going to be able to bring a lot of that to All Natural Being here in just a few hours.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. We're, like I said, we're really looking forward to this, and of course too, I should tell everybody, because obviously not everyone will necessarily be able to listen live if they're not up at that hour, but we'll make sure that the shows are available online, on demand on our site and on SoundCloud, and we'll get them up on iTunes and all that. But so Brian, we're already up against a break, so we'll let you go in a moment. But before we do, because for a lot of our listeners, they're hearing you for the first time. Anything you want to leave us with in anticipation for Friday for the big launch?
Well, you know what I would say, Matt? I was really excited and honored when you said, hey, what do you think about the 6 to 7, which would be 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time? Because I have this concept called the early morning meme. And for myself and my friends and my family and my team, I always say to them, let's hijack your mind in the morning. Let's corral your mind before the day gets a chance to do it. So what I love about being up that early in the morning, and I call it the early morning meme, but let's make sure who's flying the airplane, right? Let's get into the cockpit bright and early, make sure we've got controls of the plane. So I like that hour of the day because it allows me to set my mind on what I'm going to focus on, what I'm going to accomplish. And you know, Matt, I'm not a big goal setting kind of guy. So this show's not going to be teaching how to goal set. Matter of fact, if you're using goal setting, perfect way to guarantee you're going to live from paycheck to paycheck. So it's a totally different type of show, and I'm really thankful and honored that you asked me to come on and hang out on your station.
All right, Brian Brody, thank you so much. Have a good appearance tomorrow, and we'll talk to you soon. Talk to you Friday.
Thanks, Matt.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live. It's Tuesday night, of course. 5 nights a week. We are live from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire. And, of course, the IPM Nation live station powered by Ambit Energy. You can find out how to save on your energy bills. Go to ipmnation.ambitrabbit.com. You'll be very glad that you did. And, of course, Tuesday and Thursday nights, we have the honor and privilege of being carried on OTR FM, which is the premium channel on the OMTimes Radio Network. And if I haven't mentioned it lately, I'll just remind everybody. I know it was months ago now, but I like to remind everybody that this program was the very first live broadcast on the premium channel on OMTimes, OTR FM. So we were there first, and very honored to have been given that opportunity. Also, too, and Well, we'll come back to that. I was going to mention something else, but first, let me say again, thank you to Brian for joining us tonight via Skype. Brian Browdy. You can listen to the Brian Browdy Show. It's going to be weekday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern Time on IPM Nation 1 at IPMNation.com. For our OTR listeners who don't know about IPM Nation, although you should, IPMNation.com. We have a few different live channels there. And on IPM Nation 1 will be the Brian Browdy Show weekday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern, beginning because we decided we were going to start first of the month. So April 1st, which is a Friday, kind of unusual to launch a show on a Friday, but like I said, we decided, well, first of the month, that's it. That's when this thing goes. So it's going to be this coming Friday, and then every Monday through Friday from then forward at 7 a.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 1. And very excited to have Brian as a member of the IPM Nation family. And, we talk, he and I talk, or he and Jen talks every day. And he's a pleasure to work with, and it brings a lot of enthusiasm and energy to the whole deal. So really happy about that. And I should, by the way, too, if you want to check out his website, brianbrowdy.com, I should spell that for you. So Brian, he spells it with an I, the more traditional way. So it's BrianBrawdy.com. That's how you spell Brian Browdy. Also, too, and I didn't do the housekeeping that I usually do at the top of the show because I wanted to get right to Brian because he only had a limited amount of time because he's got to be up extra early tomorrow for his appearance on Fox News. But tomorrow on the television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed, which, of course, you can see at 2 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday on IPM Nation, my guest will be Dave Ridley, who you never know. We might hear from Dave tonight. He does often call the show. Dave Ridley of The Ridley Report. You can check out his videos online on his YouTube channel. He does, I forget if this is his term or if someone else coined this term, ambush journalism, where you kind of try to catch these politicians and other public figures off guard with a video camera and ask them questions that they may not want to answer in a more controlled situation. That's kind of what Dave does, and he's great at it, and always enjoy talking to him. He will be actually there in person, however, on the television show tomorrow. It'll be my first time meeting him in person. So, like I said, he does call into the show quite a bit, and I think there was one night that we had him on, too, officially as our guest. So he was with us for the entire hour, I think. I think we did an episode with him like that. But we'll get to talk with him more in depth tomorrow on the TV edition of the show. And this is probably Dave calling. Dave, is that you?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I was just talking about you.
Oh, really? Well, I was actually listening, but I had turned off the stream about 3 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was just telling everybody that you're going to be on the TV show tomorrow, assuming you're still on for tomorrow. You still good for that?
Yeah, that works.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah, now I don't have to email you, but I don't guess we should do logistics in front of the listeners, should we?
Yeah, you probably don't want to give out your address on the air, but you did already give it to me.
Oh, yeah.
Unless I'm
just be boring.
unless I'm picking you up somewhere else, but this will be great because I was saying too. Obviously, you call the show occasionally, but I think didn't we also do a show where we had you on for the full hour as a guest and I interviewed you? Did we do that?
Yeah, that was the first time I was on, right?
Right. Okay, I remember now. Okay, yeah. So this will be great tomorrow because we'll get to go in more in depth on things and learn more about your background and what you do and how you do it, and we can talk about all the recent goings on. I heard you earlier on Free Talk Live. I heard you call in. You sounded like you were out of breath. Had you been running or something?
Yeah, I call in while I'm out walking sometimes.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I heard you.
It doesn't sound like I'm panicking, although I guess if it does, then it makes for more viewers.
I thought maybe somebody was chasing you.
Well, I guess we're all technically being chased.
You could look at it that way, certainly.
Figuratively, yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually, when I was talking about you a moment ago before you called in, I was saying I couldn't recall if this was a term that I've heard you use or if somebody else used it, but ambush journalism, is that what you would call what you do?
Yeah, kind of. It's ambush interviews.
Yeah.
That's sort of what the Ridley Report orbits around now. And that's why you don't see me doing a report about whatever happened yesterday in the news.
Right.
Or you don't see a lot of commentary. I'll do a little bit of commentary, but if possible, the whole Ridley Report should be all ambush interviews all the time. And that just goes away if there's a logistical problem. For instance, if I'm just away and I'm not around any bureaucrats for a period of time, and it's not convenient for me to be around them, I might run out of ambush interview stories. But it's really just about going up to politician or bureaucrat after politician or bureaucrat and aiming a camera at them, asking them the hardest question I can think of that's not completely disrespectful, and just seeing how they react.
You know, it's funny. It occurs to me you would almost think in some way some of these bureaucrats, I mean, they probably aren't generally happy to see you coming. But then again, I mean, your typical government bureaucrat, how often is it that someone actually wants to engage them? You know what I mean? Seems like most of the time.
There's a faction. There's definitely a faction. I mean, they don't. I mean, not officially, but there are factions of people within the government that really like it. And some of them like it just because there's no local coverage of local news.
Yeah.
Others like it because they like the questions.
Really?
And then there are others that don't agree with me, but they think I'm charming, believe it or not.
Well, that's good.
That was what one of the state reps called me that when I ambush interviewed him about his low ratings with the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen him before, and he'd never seen me in person before. But he's like, "Oh, Mr. Ridley, hang on just a sec. I'd love to talk to you." And then he came back and gave me we talked for 20 minutes on camera and
wow.
debated, for 20 minutes. He just personally liked me, But not everyone does that. But I'm not sure that people who are close to me are that way, but my enemies seem to like me. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the expression? You get you get more flies with honey or something. If you can find a way to connect with people, on a personal level where they do like you. I mean, for one thing, they probably the psychology of this stuff is always interesting to me. So if you think about it, and you probably have thought about this, I don't think I'm going to say anything earth-shattering here, but if they're probably more likely to trust you and trust that you're going to treat them fairly from a journalistic standpoint if they like you. Whereas if you're nothing but aggressive and they're kind of put off by you, then they're probably not going to trust you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the trick is probably, and it took me a while to figure this out, but I think the trick is to be amused and really feel amused as opposed to being angry. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If you come off as amused rather than strident, it's just very hard for people to get angry with you or want to arrest you. But on the other hand, I've been to so many events where I had the police called on me get practically interrogated before I can get close to the meeting. There was a meeting I went. This hasn't been on the Ridley Report. There was a meeting I went to the other day where it was behind locked doors, like the building was locked where the public meeting was happening.
Yeah, I remember you were on the show talking about that. It's like someone clearly misunderstood what public meant when they're locking the doors.
Yeah.
If you had any, how about lately? Any new experiences lately that were particularly interesting or frustrating in terms of videos?
Well, the reason I was calling in was I kind of wanted to share with the listeners, especially the ones that don't watch the channel that much, the concept of the solo protest. I have this idea that the biggest difference is the difference between 0 and 1, right? So, right now, there are 0 protesters in front of the Valley Street Jail, and they're just getting a free ride. No one's aiming any ugly signs at them or any questioning signs or anything. It's just business as usual inside that death trap.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about a New Hampshire jail. For those who were uninitiated, the one I think that has the most kills, right? The most people that have died there.
Yeah.
But I went out a few days ago, and just because I had some extra time and all the equipment in place, I built a protest by myself. You know, I didn't have to schedule it. I didn't have to be there at a certain time. I didn't have to leave at a certain time. I didn't have to have any annoying people with me that might detract from the protest. You know, usually people don't, right? Like if you have 10 people, you're going to have probably 10 good ones. But if you have 20, there's going to be someone in there that makes a jerk out of themselves.
Sure.
So just better in a way. It just you can control the message. You can be just as entertaining. In this case, like the inmates could see me from most sides of the jail. So you know, that there was just a lot of window banging going on in the Valley Street jail for about 45 minutes. And, you know, I had a sign that said, let my people go, nhfree.com, right?
Yeah.
And so it just, you know, it gave the inmates a little bit to look at, something better to do with their day.
Sure.
For a few minutes. And eventually probably, you know, someone probably recognized me, and then that probably at least sparked some interesting and enjoyable conversations, and it spread our message. So I just think, you know, I didn't have to bother anybody else to do this. I didn't have to set up a Facebook event or anything like that, or worry about what the weather was going to be, because I could just not show up if it was raining, and just do it when the rain was gone.
Right,
so
right.
I just wish people would do. I just encourage people to do this all over the country. Just go to a government building, preferably a federal building, that bothers you, and hold a sign that says so, and bring a camera, and if anyone bothers you, get video. And if you think your camera might get taken, you bring a live streaming camera. And if you're sure you're going to be trouble, you bring someone to film you from a distance. But, I think generally, you can do most of the stuff by yourself. I've protested by myself in front of so many federal buildings, or not so many of them, but so many times.
Yeah.
In front of federal buildings.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Matt Connarton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connarton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connarton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live from the Uptown Auto Repairs studio in Manchester, New Hampshire. Broadcasting worldwide on IPM Nation 2, and because it's Tuesday, we're also on OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes Radio Network. And a busy night so far. Of course, we talked to, on the first segment, Brian Browdy, host of the Brian Browdy Show, which debuts on IPM Nation 1 this coming Friday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll be weekdays, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. going forward. And then in the second segment, Dave Ridley called in. Dave Ridley of the Ridley Report And Dave will be joining us tomorrow on the television edition of Unleashed. Again, the TV edition is every Wednesday live from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on IPM Nation. And if you don't get to see it during the day, we do get them up and available on YouTube the same day, usually by about 9 p.m. Eastern that night. So, and or you can listen. We do replay the audio from the television edition in this very slot on IPM Nation 1. So that's the one night of the week that we're not live is Wednesday night. Oh, by the way, funny, kind of a funny anecdote. Dave, the reason we were able to set up Dave Ridley's appearance tomorrow on the TV show is Dave called last night at about 11:45 because we actually, and it's, I can honestly say this is a very, very rare occurrence, but Monday nights we're not on OTR FM. We're strictly on IPM Nation. And last night I did a half a show. I only did a 30-minute show. So I was off at about 11:30 only because I had something very pressing. I needed to, I was fighting a deadline in terms of another show that I produce called Local Outbreak, which is currently the #1 show on IPM Nation, by the way, which is part of why it's such a priority. And I was very behind, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a tight half-hour show tonight. And like I said, it's incredibly rare that I've ever done that, but I did it last night. And then so Dave didn't know, he assumed we were still on, which is a perfectly reasonable assumption because 99% of the time we would still be on. But so then we were just kind of chatting, shooting the breeze. And, I said, you want to come on the TV show because Dave actually doesn't live far from where I am. So that's convenient. So we'll actually get to meet in person tomorrow, and you all will get to not just hear Dave Ridley, but see him. And we'll get more in depth about his what he does and his experience in broadcasting and all that good stuff. So that'll be great. So that's tomorrow, this week's television edition of Unleashed. My guest, Dave Ridley from the Ridley Report. And I want to I mentioned last night's show. I really only in the short time that I was on the air kind of focused on one specific issue for that half hour. I had a couple things I wanted to try to get to, but you guys, especially if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know how it goes. Sometimes I'll have several things that I intend to get to, and then I get kind of bogged down on one thing. That's why, if you notice, I kind of changed the intro for the show. I used to kind of rattle off a list of things that I was going to cover on the show tonight, and then I would end up not getting to half of them or most of them. So I kind of changed up how we do that. But I was talking last night about Georgia. Governor Nathan Deal, who is a conservative Republican Christian, I would assume, governor of Georgia, he actually vetoed, apparently learning something from Mike Pence in Indiana, which I think was about a year ago that all went down. Nathan Deal decided to just, skip all the drama and trauma and just went ahead and vetoed, or said he was going to veto the religious freedom or religious liberty or whatever it's called, whatever the nickname is that we're supposed to be giving to this legislation, which basically, I think the idea is to protect religious people who don't want to have to provide services for LGBT people, to protect them from being sued. And Nathan Deal, after great pressure from major companies like the NFL, like Disney, said, no, we're not going to go down this road. We don't need to. And, I have, like I think a lot of people do, but people are afraid to say it because we live in this world where politically everything has to be so polarized. You have to be all in on one side or the other on absolutely every issue. And God forbid you acknowledge that a particular issue might be complex and try to apply some nuance or critical thinking to it. But I talked about last night on the show how with this stuff, I do have some mixed feelings. On the one hand, I very much wish that all of us as a country, as a culture, as a society could just grow up and get over all this, homophobia, Islamophobia, bigotry, what else? All this stuff, and just accept each other for who we are and get over it and celebrate diversity and all that. On the other hand, I also am not particularly thrilled to hear about someone being sued, having their business, their livelihood sued out of existence because, the cake maker in Oklahoma or wherever, didn't want to make the wedding cake for the gay couple and ended up, losing the business over it. Even though I might disagree with that cake maker's position, and I think it's silly to discriminate against anybody. You're running a business. It's capitalism. Take their money, make the damn cake. What's the big deal? But I mean, of course, as someone who's not particularly religious myself, I wouldn't see the big deal in that. Wouldn't affect me any to, even if I, for some reason, even if I opposed gay marriage, if not for spiritual, but even for political reasons, at the end of the day, you're running a business, But I've always been pro-marriage equality. I was pro-gay marriage before it was cool to be pro-gay marriage. But I'm not particularly thrilled with this idea that we need to constantly be adding new laws for everything either, whether it's a law to protect people from being sued who don't want to participate in something they don't agree with religiously, or something to protect the rights of people to sue a business, or, I don't want any more laws. Do we have enough laws? And can't we just mature and evolve as a culture to a point where we don't need to be legislating human behavior to this degree? But so anyway, Nathan Deal, regardless of how he may or may not feel about gay marriage or the rights of LGBT people, and in terms of how businesses interact with them, because this really is, the whole religious freedom thing ultimately really is about gay marriage specifically. I mean, there are other things that play into it, like, a transsexual who wants to use a different bathroom than maybe some people think that they should be using or whatever. But it really does kind of come down to these businesses that don't want to participate in someone's gay wedding, whether it be the cake maker who doesn't want to make a cake with a couple of dudes on it, or the justice of the peace who doesn't want to have to, officiate a gay wedding. Again, I don't see what the big deal is, but I think that these people think that they're going to hell if they go along with this. So they have to stand up against it. Whatever gets you into heaven. But Nathan Deal, again, he caved into the pressure of these businesses. And now this is up on Politico. It says backlash hits GOP governors over religious freedom legislation. Polarizing legislation has created issues for the governors of North Carolina and Georgia. This is very interesting to me. The fallout of this is interesting. Let me read some of this. I know we're up against another break in a couple minutes, but it says here, religious liberty laws and bathroom bills were supposed to be conservatives' counterattack to the growing codification of gay and transgender rights, including the Supreme Court's approval of same-sex marriage. Instead, social conservatives are losing battles over gay, lesbian, and transgender policies in red states across the country as GOP governors start to buckle under pressure from the business community and mainstream Republicans over laws that would allow discrimination against gay and transgender people. Now, let me stop there for a moment. I brought this up on last night's show, but I want to expand on this a little bit. Plus, I'm not sure I articulated it as well as I could have. So let me take a second shot at this. There is, for conservatives, I feel, competing ideals here, because on the one hand, conservatives place tremendous value on what they would call religious liberty and free association, which is a part of that, right? You're So, and I believe in free association. You know, in theory, you should be able to associate or not associate, whether it be in your personal life or in business, with whomever you choose to or choose not to. But on the other hand, of course, conservatives are very pro-business and pro-capitalism. So I think that they're in an awkward position. And we're seeing this conflict play out with these Republican governors now. They're in a conflict within conservatism itself, because you have, and this will happen in any ideology. It's perfectly natural, but this particular conflict is interesting to me because you have competing ideals. On the one hand, religious liberty and free association versus capitalism and the free market. Because in theory, yes, any business has a right to say, well, we don't like this, we'd rather not participate in this and whatnot. But the free market then has the right to react negatively to that and pressure that business to change its mind, which in theory is why we shouldn't need laws like this very law, these religious liberty laws that the free market is pressuring these governors not to sign. It's very interesting to me. I'm fascinated by this particular sort of ideological divide among the right on this. You know, you would think a truly religious person who truly believes that that God and his will should trump everything else would say, well, no, it doesn't matter what capitalism dictates or the free market dictates, because, you know, we have to do what the Old Testament says so we don't end up in hell. So if Leviticus says, don't make that wedding cake, then you can't make that wedding cake. And if you get sued out of your business, that's just God's will. Or if no one wants to patronize your business, I guess that's God's will. It's interesting stuff. All right, we got one more break, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe, The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello again. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on IPM Nation 2 and OTR FM as we cruise into our final segment tonight. And Donald Trump. We haven't gotten to Trump yet tonight. By the way, I did share out, I'm not going to get to this specifically, but I did share out on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page that, the ratings for the cable networks and their political coverage is they're setting record highs with their ratings this particular cycle. And again, I've talked about this a lot on the show, but it's just to me it further bolsters my argument that those Trump supporters who complain that the media is out to get Trump and the media is not fair to Trump and this and that, they don't understand how the media, how big corporate media specifically, I should say, really operates. I mean, and that's different from, this is what I guess you would call alternative media, what we do here. But the big corporate media, no, they love Trump. They love Trump. It's why he gets all the coverage that he does. I guarantee you, they want Trump to be president, and because it'll just be so interesting. Look, I don't like the guy, but honestly, what would be more interesting? See, here's the thing. Okay, so because the media always wants interesting things to cover, especially in politics. That's what makes politics fun. So, assuming the nominees are Trump and Hillary, you're going to have all these Republicans going, oh, the media, they're in the tank for Hillary. They don't want Trump to win. They want Hillary to win. I disagree. I think the media is going to very much want Trump to win because that's a better and bigger story. A Hillary Clinton victory, it's predictable. And a Hillary Clinton presidency will be predictable. I think. I don't think she's going to surprise anybody very much, ideologically speaking, but a Trump presidency would be fascinating because he's such a wild card. And don't get me wrong, please, I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not a Trump supporter, nor am I a Hillary supporter. I've endorsed my candidate. I've endorsed Darrell W. Perry, libertarian candidate for president. And if Darrell fails to secure the libertarian nomination, and it winds up being who it most likely will be, Gary Johnson, who apparently is polling at something like 11% in national polls. Gary Johnson, the presumptive libertarian nominee. I know they haven't had their convention yet, but Gary Johnson's the biggest name on on the ticket potentially. And he was the nominee 4 years ago. That's who I voted for in 2012. I voted for Gary Johnson, and I'll vote for him again if he's the nominee. So I don't want anyone to misunderstand. I'm not saying that I think Trump should be the one, but I'm telling you, if you really believe that the media is against Trump and wants to see him fail, then you have a fundamental misunderstanding of how the media works. You know what I'm reminded of? This is kind of a strange example of this, but it's an example of how sometimes you'll see in the media, you might know how certain people within the media feel ideologically, but they still would prefer the bigger, more interesting story be the story than the less interesting, more predictable one. I'll give you a really weird example of this. Let's go back to 2004, election night in November of 2004. George W. Bush versus John Kerry. And George W. Bush won. Cuyahoga County, Ohio, ended up being kind of what it came down to. Karl Rove, Turd Blossom, which is, of course, George W. Bush's nickname for him. Karl Rove, very smartly, the evil genius that he is, made sure that gay marriage was on the ballot for referendum in Cuyahoga County in Ohio that year. And of course, so all the Christian conservatives were mobilized and energized to get to the polls to vote against gay marriage, which, of course, while they were there, they voted for George W. Bush for president. It literally, that election came down to Cuyahoga County in Ohio. Had it not been for that, and Karl Rove, I mean, very, very smart, had Karl Rove not made sure that gay marriage was on the ballot in Ohio, John Kerry might have been president. And by the way, I have to tell you, just personally, I was crushed by the outcome of that election. I was so upset. I desperately wanted Kerry to win, not because I thought John Kerry would have been any kind of a great president or anything. Well, who knows? I mean, we'll never know. But just, I wanted Bush out so badly. And I thought a lot of other people did too. And I thought enough other people. I cannot believe, I still to this day, it's like, how did George W. Bush get a second term? You know what else too I lament about that is within a year, George W. Bush's approval rating within a year of his second term was down to something like 20%. And I remember thinking, oh, why couldn't this have happened a year earlier? He wouldn't be president right now. But oh God, that was a close election. But here's what was so weird about that night. So on election night, I love election night, you know, and I it's, to me, it's like the Super Bowl. And you know, I'm flipping around to the different cable news channels. You know, you got Fox and MSNBC and CNN, and you know, I'm going back and forth seeing which network is calling which states for which candidate, and you know, I love it. I eat it up, of course, as a political junkie. Why wouldn't I? And but here's what I recall on Fox. So this time it wasn't like 2000. Remember 2000, Bush v. Gore. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and you've got hanging chads in Florida and all this. So this was very anticlimactic in 2004 compared to 2000. We knew that night, I think they called the election around 11 p.m., maybe midnight, that maybe even earlier, that George W. Bush had won a second term. And on Fox News, you would think the panel, their election night panel, would have been happy, would have been jubilant. Their guy won. George W. Bush won. But they clearly were not. They actually seemed kind of almost depressed. Like they were very solemn and somber. And I wasn't the only one who noticed this, by the way. I've only heard actually one other, it may be very few people notice. I've only ever heard one other person comment on that. But it was the next day, I happened to subject myself to a little bit of Laura Ingraham and her show. And I heard her commenting, wow, you know, on Fox, they seemed really kind of down, almost disappointed in the outcome. You'd think they would have been happy. But I think I know what it was. They wanted, obviously they're conservatives. They wanted Bush to win, but they're also journalists, quote unquote, and they would have preferred the better story. John Kerry dethroning George W. Bush would have been a more interesting story. It would have been more exciting to cover, especially if it had been drawn out like 2000 was with Florida, with what happened in Florida. If we had seen a similar scenario with Ohio, that would have been a more interesting story. But instead, George W. Bush won re-election. So in theory, they should be happy, but they clearly were kind of bummed. Britt Hume and I forget who else was. Oh, Charles Krauthammer. And I can't believe I even remember that much. Yeah, Britt Hume was anchoring. Charles Krauthammer was part of the panel. I think Maura Liasson. And I forget who else. But yeah, they seemed like, oh, wow, it's already over. And Bush won re-election. But see, that's what I mean. They're more interested in the better story than their own personal political preferences, ultimately. So you can talk about the liberal media all you want to, but ultimately what big corporate media really wants is they want ratings. It's how they make their money. They're part of the machine, the corporatocracy. They're part of the machine. They want the ratings and the revenue that generates, the ad revenue. It's a business. The media is a business. So they don't want a Hillary Clinton presidency. That's predictable and boring. They want Donald Trump to win. And I'm telling you, all you Republicans who are so convinced, the media, they're never going to be fair to Trump. The media, look at the exceptions they've made for Trump. Trump gets to just call in on these Sunday morning shows. I think it was one of them. I think it was CBS's Face the Nation made a rule about that. Trump can't just phone it in. He has to be there in the studio, because traditionally that's how it's done on the Sunday morning talk shows. You don't get to call in. You have to either be there or you can be there by satellite, but you have to be on camera. You don't get to just call in. But they've made exceptions for Trump. Why? Because Trump, whether you love him or you hate him, or whether you hate to love him or love to hate him or whatever, he is ratings. And that is because he is the story. The election itself isn't even the story. Trump is the story. They love Trump. They love him, and they want him to win, because that gets people watching and will continue to watch and read all the online stuff and all of it. It's great. Trump is a gift for the media. And he knows it, by the way, and it's a symbiotic relationship, right? Because he benefits from that because he gets all this free coverage, and the media keeps feeding the beast, and and it just goes on and on. All right, we're almost out of time. Don't forget, tomorrow, the television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. Dave Ridley will be with me for the hour. Really looking forward to that. If you can't watch it live at 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll have it up on YouTube by 9 p.m. Check out the Ridley Report. And thank you again to Brian Browdy for joining me at the top of the show tonight. The Brian Browdy Show debuts it's coming quick, this Friday. Friday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 1, and will be weekdays on IPM Nation 1, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern going forward, the Brian Browdy Show. So thank you again to Brian, and thank all of you. Good night.